Hey, folks, welcome back to Soaring Profits. I'm Patrick, and I've got my special co-host here today,
James.
Great to have you back here as always. Today, obviously, we're back at the beach, as you can see. I think I've kind of figured out where we are. Actually, I was looking off into the distance, and if you can focus off way into the hills there, it looks like we're in Santorini. And the reason I say that is I think we've got those blue rooftop of the villas. So I think we finally nailed down where we are. So
I think you nailed it down.
For all yous at home, we're in Santorini this afternoon.
I'm pretty sure they were worried about it too.
There you go.
They were like watching our podcasts over and over.
For that.
And they were like, I got to figure out where they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, this is our spot. Looks beautiful.
Plane trip was really quick.
I tell you. Yeah. I just threw a headset on, walked down into the basement. Dog licked my hand for a little while. It was weird.
That was a weird moment for me too. I'm just going to say.
Well, we're all friends now.
Yeah. All close.
But kind of, speaking about vacationing and Santorini and that sort of thing, I've been recently talking with my daughter about taking a trip, and that's kind of brought up some of these motivations and pros and cons of traveling. And you and I have talked a lot about benefiting and raising children, right? And what does that look like in today's society and with all of the craziness and the way that the world is right now? So yeah, I think that's a topic. I'd be interested in chatting about that. What it means to be a father in today's society. What do you think?
I think it's a great topic. There's a lot about it that we could talk about, especially since we have two different generations. Like your child is younger. Mine are both grown. And I was just talking them through Facebook Messenger tonight about their future plans and what's going on. I have one son that's just finishing engineering, and my daughter is going to be embarking on university very soon. And both are older, 25 and 23.
Right.
So whereas your daughter is much younger and is going through, they have similar challenges, but when my kids were growing up, the whole kind of social media stuff was just kind of starting. It didn't really affect them. It wasn't quite a worry. There was a little bit of worry, but it was more just having the cell phone so handy.
For sure.
So there's a lot of similarities and differences, and it'd be interesting to talk about that.
For sure. Well, I think for my daughter, again, 12 years old, I take great pride in my daughter, and we've had these conversations before. She's a competitive athlete. She works super hard. She's in the gym 9 hours a week for her skill set. And I've been super lucky where I don't have the child that's just hooked on to the laptop, hooked onto the iPad, hooked onto the phone. But I know that it's like every day now. I'm probably on the technology more than she is, to be quite frank, especially in what we're trying to do here.
Especially now.
Oh my goodness. And the last couple hours of trying to figure out what this all is and going from there. So, but no, I think we were asked to do a podcast outside of this. And, the organization that asked us to do this, they were a men's organization. And they were talking about some of the trials and tribulations of being a man and raising children and what that means in, 2022 and in modern society. And, I think there's a lot to be said of the role of a father. There's a lot to be said for the role of a mother, obviously. But again, us being as a couple guys, we're going to talk about kind of the latter. But we're like, where do you see the differences between parenting today and parenting years ago?
If you're referring to like when I was a child, or you're referring to like years ago when I was raising kids?
No, you start going back. Well, you guys had to worry about dinosaurs, the T-Rex, little arms, but it was very
fast, big sharp teeth.
Right.
It was awful. But if you like jumped from side to side, you got away from them. No. So when I was a child, really, there was very little parenting. And that was true for everyone, like good parents and bad parents. Like my dad and mom were kind of in between. My mom was very busy, so it was mostly my dad. But basically, it was streetlight to streetlight. Like I'd wake up in the morning and the sun would be rising, and I'd walk out the door, and I wouldn't tell my dad where I was going. I'd just hook up with all the guys and girls that had their bikes already, and halfway through the day, we end up at someone's house, and whichever house we ended up, whatever mom was there would like throw out the sandwiches and the lemonade,
right?
And then we'd be gone again, and we wouldn't be back. Like we would back on our street when the street lights came on,
for sure.
And then we could still play. That's when hide and seek happened. and
Right.
we'd be out there for hours after that playing, and eventually we'd roll in, have our bath, and that was the day. Like I would hazard a guess, my parents didn't know where I was most of the day. Like we were out, like I lived in a big city when I was really young, and we were crossing a main road that was like 4 lanes and crazy traffic and buses, and no one seemed to care. But it was funny. Like
Yeah.
some experiences maybe were a little bit dangerous. I did have one occasion where we were a large group. We were in a park, and this man approached us and told us that there would be if we came back at a certain time, there would be candy and there would be a party and it'd be all kinds of fun. And stupid
How
us,
was the party?
obviously. Exactly. Stupid us went back, but when we got back, fortunately, there was an adult, either an adult or a child that was smart and had told them, because when we showed up, the police asked us why we were there, and we told them, and they're like, "Oh, okay," and they gave us the riot act for falling for such a stupidity.
Right.
Apparently, they've been looking for that guy all day. I don't know if they ever caught him because I was very young at the time, but
Sure.
that like my parents didn't even know
So
that
you're
happened.
telling me you had a van puppy dog experience?
I had a van puppy dog experience, and my
I
parents
tell
didn't
you.
even know about it. I was probably
Right.
6 years old at the time. My brother was 11.
Wild.
But
Well, there's
my
a saying
yeah,
that I've heard for years and years and years, and I think it's a good one, and it kind of explains exactly that childhood activity where you'd leave and go and do stuff, and
yeah,
it's parenting is done best when children do dangerous things safe, dangerous activities
exactly.
safe, and it's funny you're saying that, like running across the highway, doing those sorts of things. If you're doing it safely, that's where your threshold of learning, your threshold of education is really driven from, right? And well, short of the puppy dog van situation that you found yourself
Exactly.
in, yeah,
Yeah,
we might have been knowing you as Timothy on the side of a milk jug at
it
some
could have
point,
happened
but
that day. Yeah, yeah,
right, right.
yeah.
But no, I think this kind of came up as a general topic they were talking about. But I had an experience earlier this week where I had someone that I know that they had their child had a planned outing with a group of friends to meet at the convenience store, and it was
Yes.
like 6 or 7 hours away, and I was kind of blown away by that. Like you're going to
They
meet at the convenience store at 7 p.m. and that was the outing. They were going to go meet at the convenience store. And I'd made a joke. I'm like, are you buying smokes? What where's the danger? Where's the thrill? What's the excitement factor of this? And that was the activity. They were just going to meet at the convenience store at 7 p.m. And I'm
do something at the
wild.
convenience store, or they were going to go somewhere else after.
I thought rob it. I didn't know what the plan was, but like it just seemed very structured,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
confined, very and you have to have a little bit more spontaneity, I think, in our lives than that. So
You know what? There has to be, like, so when my kids were little, now I was a bit of a helicopter parent because, I might have got in trouble or two because my parents didn't kind of watch me when I was growing up.
you
But
also almost bought yourself a puppy in a van
I
too.
almost
So I
bought
get you.
almost got a free puppy. So,
Yeah, ice cream
there's
trucks were
perks.
dangerous.
They were very dangerous.
Yeah.
But so when my kids went out, they were allowed to go out and do, but I had to know where they were going, what kids they were going to be with, and
Right.
they had to, like, or cell phones. So this was a little bit before cell phones. They got them later. I think high school is when I gave them one. So they had a watch, and I would tell them, you can go. You're going to meet them at the school with your bikes, and in an hour, you're going to be in my driveway. You're going to wave to me, and then you can go do another hour.
Right.
And that's how I dealt with it. So they still had that freedom that when they were out there, they could. I trusted my kids because I
Right.
taught them the right and wrong, but I didn't trust other people. So
one Hundred
I
percent.
figured if I knew every hour that they were safe,
Right.
then that'd be all right. That gave me, he's been gone for an hour or she's been gone for an hour.
Yep.
So that's what I ended up doing. But there was a little bit of that other stuff where it was like, we're planning an outing, like, which is weird, but I get it. Because you have to know, like, all the parents wanted to know where their kids were at all times. It wasn't
Sure.
like when I was growing up. So
Sure.
you really did plan outings. I don't know why you'd plan a convenience store. My kids mostly planned movie theaters and the mall and stuff like
Right.
that.
And that's the way my daughter
Uh,
is. This, I
yeah,
think, this situation was, and I think COVID has created a dynamic that we're struggling through as parents. And that's something that I want to bring this back around to the roles of the father and roles of the mother
Sure.
and that sort of thing, right? But COVID has created a dynamic that we have that is very unique in social settings. Whether you will attend somebody's house and knock on the door and be like, "Hi, is Timmy here?" when we were kids, or
Yes.
shoot them a message and be like, "Yo, I'm heading over to your place." I just feel like the virus has put us in a position where that comfort level has been pushed to a different
Mm.
level than like you always everyone had their guy that would come around. It's like, ah, shit, it's that guy again, right? And the
Yeah,
and the
totally.
and even the family was like, tell him to get lost. It's dinner time, it's whatever.
Yeah.
And you go to the door and you're like, Tim, I can't come out and play. My parents don't even like you. You smell. Like, who knows what the
Right.
problem is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But like I feel like COVID has created everyone to have that backup. Like we just have this weird dynamic where it's like everyone just don't bother, don't come, don't do that. And I think it's
Yeah.
setting our children up for a very weird antisocial developmental process that's dangerous societally. Like if this continues to be how we do things, as much as we love the technology, folks, you can't live through this forever, right?
No. You
That's
can't
kind of a
stretch everyone
segue.
through podcasts or anything like that. Yeah,
Right.
no. So like I work in an education field, and like we've been talking about, there are kids in the school right now that this is their first experience in the school because
Right.
they spent 2 years online. Uh, Recently, first experience in a school without a mask.
Right.
Like I don't even know. Like, so for the first 2 years of your life, like your school education life, you've had no socialization. It
Yep.
changes things when you don't have, like, you're behind socially. Education wise, not too bad, a little bit behind. But socially, because you haven't had those friends, you haven't been able to go out to play, you haven't been able to do anything except for online games and stuff like that, or whatever your parents might have set up,
Sure.
depending on what level of COVID fear they're suffering from.
Right.
uh, so there's a learning curve for these kids in school of what's socially acceptable and what's not in the school. Whereas when you come in and you're 5 years old, this is your new school experience. It's exciting and all that, but you learn the rules as you go
Yeah.
as a small person.
Right.
But now you're
Yeah.
a bigger person and
Yeah.
you're just learning the rules.
Yeah.
There's
You
a
don't know how to ask to go to the washroom. You don't know how to
yeah,
ask to do anything. You're
yeah.
engaged in this process that already has fundamental structure, fundamental rules, and you haven't caught it yet.
You have nothing. You don't
And
know
nothing.
anything,
Right.
but
So
you're expected.
as a parent, I think that segues perfectly into what we're saying here is as a parent, what role does a father have? What role does a mother have? And what do those things differentiate? Right. Like I have, individuals in my personal life and people that I know that their fathers are absent or their mothers don't have the relationship that are very close with people. Right. And
Mm.
I, developmentally, and that's kind of what we're talking about here is that delay, that process. Um, Fathers are such a huge fundamental process and such an important piece in a child's life. Obviously a mother births a child and that bond should never and can never truly be broken or fractured. But fatherhood and the assertiveness of the fatherhood and even like the tyrannical viewpoint of some tyrannical fathers where the demanding, the assertiveness, the those sorts of things, how in 2022 in a society that's demanding of softening and emotional regulation, I suppose you would say, what does that look like for a father and how is fatherhood changing?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Like, so I agree with you. Like, I think we're getting away from the whole family structure where, it's a father and a mother and they raise the child together because both have a thing in it. Like, the mother is more nurturing than the father. Like, I know myself, I'm not as nurturing as the mother was, like, because when a problem arises, say they have trouble with a kid or they're upset about something, I solve the problem. I'm like, okay, we cried. Now we're
Right.
going to solve the problem. We're going to move on. Whereas the mother, grabs them in, cuddles them, whispers in their ear. They may still solve the problem, right? They may still solve the problem, but it's a different process. It's
Right.
also a different skill set. Like if Timmy comes and punches my son in the mouth, likely I'm going to say, well, the next time Timmy punches you in the mouth, you're going to punch him in the mouth.
Right.
I don't think a mother's going to say that. I think a mother's going to like possibly, try and find Timmy's mom or, whatever, handle it in a different way, a more nurturing way, which is important. They
Right.
have to have both sides. They have to be able to learn how to share feelings in a comfortable, nice setting, but they also have to be able to stand up for themselves. They
Right.
also have to
Cross.
be able to, drive for what they want. Learn how to playing sports is a great example of that because you drive for a common goal,
Right.
and I think that's a very masculine energy. And I think when fathers are more involved in that rough house, like I know when my kids were little, we roughed house all the time. I don't remember a time that their mom rough house with them.
Right.
Possibly happened, but
Right.
we were doing it all the time.
Yeah, and
Like it's
that's
how
even
we
with my
played.
daughter, for instance. Again, my daughter's 12. Uh, she's about 5'7", 5'8". She is a very tall girl,
Yes.
and
And
she's
solid
solid.
muscle.
Like she's a
Yeah.
gymnast, so like she is solid. So like when I was a kid, we used to get down and wrestle, and I'd put her in arm bars and all the stuff that we do. And now I'm finding that I'll grab a hold of her and I go, I wouldn't want to run into you in a dark alley, right?
And
I'm
unfortunately,
6.
now you've shown her how to do arm bars,
Right.
which was likely a mistake.
Yeah. I'm 6'1", about 205, 210. And there's times like even tonight we were wrestling around in the kitchen doing dinner, and I grabbed a hold of her and I was like, that's about all I can handle. That's about it. I wouldn't want to have to go 12 rounds with you. And
Yeah.
I guess that's, the old adage of old man strength. I've got about 2 rounds in me, and then that's about all I got anymore,
Then you
right?
tire out. Yeah.
That's it. So I gotta
Yeah.
I gotta finish you real quick.
Yeah.
But no, fathers, I've watched through, again, in my situation, I've went through the family court process. I know you were very fortunate and you didn't have to do that sort of thing. But I've walked through the family court process, and fathers in today's society are either viewed as problematic or that they are supplementary, in my opinion and in my experiences through the court process. I have full custody of my daughter. I fought for years, spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars going through that process. But I had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that was a situation that was the best interest in the child. And that to me was heartbreaking because it created this combative system that wasn't in the best interest of the child. And that's where I look at now as fatherhood, and I go to masculinity. We've had some conversations about masculinity, but that leadership facet where I'm trying to build a life for my family and for my daughter and all of that. And it's a very different energy than, what a mother brings or what, a female brings in that. And that's going through the family courts, seeing how that system is delivered, how it's created, and the animosity and process that comes from that. uh, I think it's detrimental. I think we're going to have a long-term ramification where we're forcing fathers into, is this really worth it? Is there a cost benefit analysis to 20, 30, 40, $50,000 into this court process to be with my child, to support my child, to whatever? All too often, I see fathers that are broke before they ever get through the end of it if they choose to do that route. Most often than not, they choose not to. And I think the children are the only people that suffer through that.
I agree with you. Like, I think in your case, knowing a little bit about it, it was a slam dunk and it should never have gone on as long as it did. But
Right.
uh, I have talked to other people that it's very similar thing that they walk into the door and they're not seen as equal as mom. They're not seen as they give the same amount to the child. Mostly, it seems in their cases that the mom has more rights in the court. The mom doesn't have to prove that they're not worthy. The mom doesn't have to prove that they make enough money. The mom doesn't have to prove anything except that she's female at that time. This is what I've been told. And I think that's been your experience.
Oh, 100%. And
Yeah.
I would argue that most people in the court system, courts are obviously an adversarial process. So there's, you're set between two pillars and a judge is in the middle and he believes 50% of what they say and 50% of what you say, and they schmuck it together. So it's an adversarial process. The issue is that we have to figure out what that looks like. We have to figure out how the long-term ramifications of that for our society are if we're forcing men out of lives. And I'm sure this is a topic that, will be a little bit controversial for women, maybe. But I know a lot of men that have had really problematic situations where they weren't able to come together for a solution. And then it cost them 20, 30, 40, 50, $60,000 before they ever got any ramifications to just see their children. And that's such a determining factor in the longevity and relationship of a father and a son or a father and a daughter. And that's hard. And I struggle with where our system is. And I think we need to do
Yeah.
some changes.
Well, I agree. I just think that, like, from what I've been told anyway, like, because like you said, I waited till later on in my life to decide to separate from my wife. So my kids were starting off in university and they were starting to, move on with their lives because they were old enough. So I didn't have that child thing, but I have talked to other people that have. And it seems like the system is not 50-50 when you walk in. It doesn't seem like you're saying, whereas, like mom should come to the table and go, this is what I can provide for the child.
Right.
Dad should come to the table and go, this is what I can provide for the child. And
Right.
then you see what the balance is. I'm a firm believer that it should be 50-50. Why
Absolutely.
wouldn't it be?
Yeah, that
Unless
should
you
be the
have,
presumption, right?
you
Yeah.
should walk into the door and it should be 50-50 right away. That's where we're starting at. Unless you
Yeah.
can prove that something's wrong, and it has to be fairly wrong.
Right.
But I don't think that was the case for you.
Right.
No,
No,
I think,
absolutely.
I think you for a long time struggled with, and you make a lot of money. You always have made a lot of money. You have a very strong family.
Yep.
You're very, nurturing and kind. And you've been amazing to that young girl.
Yep.
And yet you
Well, I
had to
appreciate
prove
that.
that you weren't a scumbag.
8 years. It was 8 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Where
So,
you got hours.
oh, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. So no, and like I say, is it, we might have got a little off topic of what we
Sorry.
were initially kind of talking about, but I think that there's a lot to talk about in what
Yeah.
the role of a father is and the importance of that. And again, for us to talk about the role and the importance of a mother, obviously, like for us, we came from strong mothers. Our mothers were very important roles in our lives.
Mhm.
But for us to sit and talk about the role of a mother, it's hard for us because we're dads, we're
Yeah.
men, right? It's a little bit different. And for us talking about the role of men and the importance of manhood and being that figure for our children to be able to come to and be that mechanism of support. I just finished. I'm telling you right now, man, I am killing grade 7. Like I am. This is my time to shine. I
Nice.
figure I'm going to do well. Like tonight we were doing chemistry. I'm
Yeah.
killing it. Yeah,
Good.
I've really got how this H2O thing all goes together.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's,
sure where I've heard of it before, but I'm
ice
killing it.
or something.
Oh no, that's yeah, something. Yeah, pre-iced, I think is what it's called. But
Yeah.
no, I parenting is so much more today than it was a long time ago. Maybe that's why they have 37 kids.
Look at discipline though, like how
Right.
discipline has changed. So not when you were a kid maybe, but your dad's a different soul. When I was a kid, if I did something at school,
Yep.
it doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter if my teacher walked up to me, cuffed me in the back of the head and said, "You're a stupid idiot," because I wrote, a word wrong. I would go home and tell my father that. There's not a chance in heck I would tell my father that, because he would give me hell too. He didn't care that the teacher was wrong. The teacher is always right. There's
Right.
no way. If I was sent to the principal's office because I got into a fight, doesn't matter if I caused it or not. I'm not going to my dad to tell him about that because I'm going to get in trouble.
Right.
Like, it just isn't that way anymore. Now, if, like, literally, this is a story. This is about 10 years ago. Child writes, "Fuck you," chalk, big letters on the side of the school.
Well, there goes the monetization from YouTube. Appreciate
Done.
that. Thanks, buddy.
Done. Sorry, I'm trying to help. Anyway, so the punishment was clean it off the wall. I think that's a pretty nice punishment. Clean it off the wall.
Seems
that's all you have to
fitting.
do.
Natural consequences. Yeah.
The parent walked in, yelled and screamed, "My kid's not a custodian." You will never do that to them again. Can you believe that? What would your father have done had you come home and found, like, if he had found out that that's something you wrote on a wall anywhere, let
Yep.
alone a school?
I'd likely just be regaining the ability to sit.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm
So
not
my
condoning that we beat children or anything. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. But I'm trying to say that we got to start holding kids more accountable.
the
Like,
world. Yeah. Well, my father's is slightly a different story, and I say that everyone kind of, I think if anyone that's followed this along here is that
yeah,
my father recently passed away, so it's a bit of a sentimental topic. But
yeah.
my father was born in 1952, and his father died a year and a half after he was born. So my dad never had a father, right? His
Hmm.
mother never remarried and all that, and he looked to masculinity in other men and other scenarios in that. And he remembered that, the best way explaining it was, if he goes out and he's playing lacrosse with the kids or he's playing baseball with the kids and he breaks a window, right? There
Hmm.
was there was no dad to go home to and be like, "Hey, I broke this window. Can you come with me to Mr. Smith
Right.
and let's talk this through?"
What do I do? What are the steps? How do I
Right.
fix this? Yeah.
Exactly. So he had to learn very quickly. And if you obviously you've met my dad, and my
Yes.
dad was John Wayne,
Oh,
right? He,
absolutely.
he walked into a room
He walked
o-
tall.
often in with a cowboy hat that walked in
Yeah.
first.
And he
And
strolled like he just got off a horse, whether he popped out of a truck or out of a lazy boy.
right,
It was he just hopped off a horse. Yeah.
100%. And that's
Yeah.
just who he was, and that was the masculinity that he had
Hmm.
learned and emulated and passed on. But his ability to take a situation exactly like something like that. Obviously, I wasn't the type of kid that was writing, F you or FF
Obviously
everything on
not,
the
nor
wall,
was
right?
I. Yeah.
Right. But when there were problems, I remember him coming in and dealing with teachers at school and that sort of thing. And he would come in and he'd listen and he'd let them explain their process. And he would say to me, "Did you do that?" And I'd go, "Yeah," kind of the sheepish kid look. And he'd go, "I don't want to come back and have to deal with this again." And that, as a kid,
Yes.
was worse than anything he could have ever done, said, anything else, because I had disappointed him. That
Yes.
that emptiness of, oh, poop. I hurt my dad.
Yeah.
And that commanded respect, and that commanded respect later in life. When it came to, different scenarios that I found myself in, I would stop, and he had lots of sayings, and we've had a few of them that I've talked about, but he had a saying that if it showed up in the newspaper on Monday morning, would you want the priest reading it? And
Nice.
it was, the concept was, if you lived your life that
Yeah.
way, you're probably going to be okay,
You'll probably
right?
be
If
all
if it's
right. Yeah.
if it's the Globe and Mail or the New York Times headline, and Father Smith or Father Jones or your friends and family are going to read it, you'd probably live a little different. But again,
Yeah.
I think that goes back to what, a father's viewpoint of the world, which is might be a little different, than the feminine energy of the world. And like I say, I was fortunate to have a gentleman and a scholar and a hell of a guy as a father, and
Fantastic person.
that goes a long way. But
Yeah.
where I see right now in societies, I look a lot of empty fathers. I look at a lot of people that have, chosen to be away from their families, away from their children, dating, other women into other relationships. Than,
Yes.
and I just struggle with that on such a fundamental level. Like, especially in my situation, that I fought tooth and nail in my
Hmm.
life to make sure that my daughter was stable, settled. I've changed everything. Like, I've had relationships in my life that I go, no, I'm
Absolutely.
sorry, this isn't going to work right now because I've got to focus on my daughter. When I see people that walk away from marriages or they walk away from scenarios that are just focused on the selfishness, I struggle with that. And I think that's a masculine, persona that needs to die a slow death.
I think we definitely need to change that part of it. I do believe that if you're in a marriage that isn't working, you should leave it, but you should never leave a child behind. That
But
is
would
the
you have,
worst
when you
possible thing you could possibly ever do.
100%,
My situation is different. I'm an old soul. I believe
100%,
that you don't leave your children or the marriage until the kids can survive on their own. Like,
right?
that was like there were many, many years that I held on to that marriage
Yeah,
because my kids were there. And
right,
I didn't want, I was terrified that if I stepped away, they would fall. And
100%.
my job is to build a platform. We talk about this all the time on this podcast. My job is to build a platform that they can launch from. If I'm not there every day, how do I allow them to launch from that pad? I'm just not there. You need to be there. You need to be a part of their lives. Now, I probably should have left sooner. And if I went back, I probably would. But in my mind, that's not what you
Oh,
do.
she's still got a chance? You're going to take her back? You think that's how it's all going to work itself out there?
Let's not talk about that. That's a little touchy even still. But no, like what I'm saying is that I think I hurt my children a little bit because I stayed with her. Because
Sure.
my children are older now, so we're able to have those conversations. And like one of my children literally said, I thought it was going to happen years before. Like
Right.
they know what's going on.
Right.
But when you leave, you can't leave your children behind.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying about that is that you still have to be there every week, every day, like checking in, phoning, texting, whatever you need to do to make sure that your child's okay. That's what you need to be doing.
Right.
You chose to have children. So if you choose to have children, you need to be there for them. And as a dad,
Yeah.
you need to be there. This whole idea that we don't need fathers raising kids, that's ridiculous.
Crazy.
The whole idea we don't need mothers to raise kids is ridiculous too.
Yeah.
Like, I think they both should have involvement in their life and as much as possible.
Right.
It's but anyway, it's a touchy situation that I'm sure
Everyone's got a different opinion. But you know what?
opinion.
Right. But in this situation, you know what? Maybe take this for whatever the subject and this topic has been for you. Maybe this is something to remind yourself to reach out to somebody. Reach out to somebody that you love. Reach out to somebody that you care about, whether it be your own dad, whether it be your mom, your brother, your sister, that sort of thing. But reach out to them, shoot them a text message, a friend of yours you haven't talked to in a long time, and maybe close that gap. And maybe that today is, you know, the point that we take away from this. So,
and if you're a father out there and you're not seeing your kids or haven't seen them in a long time, get your shit together and get out there and see them. I mean that.
I love it. That was some stern talking to from Mr. James.
From James P.
There you go, from James P.
Well,
again,
thank
folks,
you for
thank
coming
you very much. You got this?
We're working on this ending.
The timing.
I just wanted to thank you for joining us at our dinner table where we have conversations about life. And I'm James.
Patrick, thank you again, folks. This was Soaring Profits. And like, subscribe, and share. Send this out to anybody that you think would be interested in this sort of content. We do this. We talk about daily stock market events. I've got a few live action videos that we did today as well. Not in Santorini, but out and around. But yeah, like, subscribe, and share. And we look forward to seeing you again real soon. Thanks, folks. Hey, folks. Thanks again for joining us at Soaring Profits. Patrick and James, please like, subscribe, and share. And
follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and of course, Facebook. And let's start a dinner table discussion right on this page right here. Let's start talking about the topics that we're talking about today.
Thanks again, folks. Appreciate it.